That was Troy Aikman and the announcers talking about one of the plays out of several that Patrick Mahomes received some favorable calls in the game against the Texans. We're going to get into that in a lot in depth. There's some implications on who is named as a Super Bowl ref for this year. We saw, just as we predicted last week, that the Chiefs would be on the beneficial end of some calls. And guys, I mean, this is the playoffs, and now the league is noticing, the former players are noticing. It's not swept under the rug anymore. They're just doing it in open, blatant ways to give the Chiefs a leg up. And we are the three Angry Giant fans and a Jets fan. This is your host Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Angry Jets fan Novak. And we're through the divisional rounds. Games were much better. Heading to the championship games, and one's our biggest nightmare, and the other one is an interesting one.
It's the one everyone, the AFC game is the one everybody penciled in from day one, right? I think a lot of people thought maybe the Ravens might crash that party, but not to be. And here we go again with what should be a fun game.
Yeah, that's the one that if you asked everybody all throughout the whole year, probably everyone, Buffalo and Kansas City. So that sets up nice. I think we all know who we want to win. We'll get into our predictions and such. And then, of course, we have an NFC East nightmare, which I can't believe. I'm so unbelievably devastated by the Detroit Lions. And I know we'll break down all the games, but that's just going to be a tough one to just sit and stomach. So I don't know. That's going to be a tough one.
This is the ultimate Giants fan kick in the nuts game. I mean,
Yep.
Barkley at home against the guy that you wanted, if it wasn't for Tommy DeVito, would be under center for the Giants. I mean, it really could not be scripted any worse. And poor Mike had to deal with Ohio State and Notre Dame on top of it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what you did to deserve this, Mike, but the football gods are against you.
It feels personal, Novak. I'm not kidding. This feels very personal. It'll be a Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl just to round out the football season for me.
Yeah. So before we get into all that, and there's a lot to break down, we got some questions. We're going to break the games down, give our predictions, talk about officiating. But let's give a shout out. And this one's a little bit of misdirection, but then we'll bring it back. So hello, Hamburg, New Jersey.
Yes.
It's a borough in Jersey, population 3,266. But it's named after Hamburg, Germany. This isn't like anything special. There wasn't some guy that opened a post office named Marvin Hamburg. It's just named after the place in Germany. It has wineries, and it's got a historic downtown, and it's in north central Jersey, much almost close to the New York border.
Yeah,
borough.
I don't think I really know Hamburg. Do you, Cardone?
I'm trying to think of it. Is it near my alma mater, Ramapo?
It looked like it's in the vicinity of Ramapo. You gotta zoom out a little bit to see it.
Yeah. So you said North Central. So it's one of the lesser, I don't know, maybe smaller townships up there. There's a bunch of them, but yeah, I'm thinking it's somewhere up tucked away up there and by Piscataway maybe.
Oh yeah, that area of New Jersey that is just like Parsippany.
I get Parsippany, Piscataway mixed up sometimes. I think it's Parsippany. Yep. That's the one that's a little further up there. Yeah, I don't know.
Like Bergen County or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
So let's go to the game recaps. We'll start off with the first one, and the one that got everyone going in terms of frothing at the mouth, wild conspiracy theories, which really aren't that conspiracy. They aren't that many of a conspiracy theory because it seems to be coming true. But the Texans-Chiefs game's tied 3-3. Mahomes drops back to pass on a third. I think it was a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11.
Mm-hmm.
Throws an incomplete pass, gets hit hard in the shoulder. They throw a flag for it being a hit to the head. Chiefs get a first down. Next play, big bomb to Travis Kelce. A few plays later, they score. And guys, this is I've gone back to it. It's been one of my pet peeves. It's one of the things I bring up all the time. But we talk about this assisted replay. When does assisted replay come into play and not? Like even Aikman on that broadcast is like, well, can they go back and pick up this flag? I mean, we see he's hitting the shoulder, and then I think it was Mike Prayer. He even said, they should be able to rectify this. And they did. And then we heard Aikman be a little bit more critical as the game got on and the calls got even worse. There was another one where two Texans hit each other, yet they still called roughing the passer on Mahomes. There's another one where he sort of slowed up to stay in bounds to try and draw a penalty, and luckily they did not call it on that one. But at the end of the day, the Texans shot themselves in the foot, but they also were the victims of several bad calls.
Yeah, I don't know what to talk about first in that game. Cardone, I mean, which direction do you go? Do you go Chiefs and officials? Do you go just a playoff game absolutely for the taking that the Texans refused to play smart and just panicked with 10 minutes left in the game? And, so I don't know where I want to go. I'm sure we'll be all over Mahomes, but I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. I know we talked about it a little before we came on, but Aikman made several good comments during that game. And one of them I thought was one of the ones that needs to be addressed. And it was before he flopped, which also made before Mahomes flopped, which made Aikman sick to his stomach. But he basically said about Mahomes, if you're going to run around out there and play with the defense like that, you surrender your protection.
Yeah.
And even though that might not be the rule, that was Aikman's take on it. And I couldn't agree more. And I'll stop there because I know there's a lot more meat on that bone.
Interesting to hear Aikman's take on a broadcast like that, because I think a year or two ago, I don't know if he would have the nuts to say that, I think. And he was really on the side of where the fans are, I think, is that enough of this bullshit, enough of this, favoritism or whatever we want to call it. It's obvious to everybody now. And for Aikman to come out and say that during the game obviously says a lot. And it shows that, wow, even the most professional broadcasters are recognizing that there's something like the scales are tilted here, and that it's noticeable, and now everyone's on board with it. So that's how I interpreted that. But again, we've talked about this a million times, guys. The replay assistance, but also make it reviewable. Make like face masks and roughing. Why not just make it reviewable, and we can clean that up and get it out of the game? That way you get that subjectivity, you get that you just clean it up and you get it out of the game. That's maybe they'll make some revisions to going forward after this, but we got a championship round to go and a Super Bowl round to go, and the Chiefs may end up winning the whole goddamn thing again.
Well, I mean, we have been saying this for 2 years now, that Mahomes was doing this, slowing down before he runs out of bounds and then takes a light hit and flops. And guys, I have to think the NFL is on notice after this week, because the whole world that watches football is against the Chiefs now. Mm-hmm. They have to be. They have to be at a point where, like, they must say to the refs, like, we can't do this again. We can't get caught with this. It's too obvious. And they just don't care, or they're so blind that they don't see what they're doing. It's ruining the game. And this guy has gone from everyone's favorite player in everyone's favor to like this upstart gunslinger, Brett Favre, everyone loved him guy. He's the most hated guy in the NFL now because of this crap, and it's got to stop. It has to stop. And I thought about this earlier today. I can't think, other than the Jets, take the Jets out of the equation, there has not been a game that I've wanted to see a team lose more than this one on Sunday. The only other one I can think of is you guys when you beat the Patriots. That's the only other game that I was a fan of the Giants, like a crazy, rabid Giant fan for one day. I will be the same for the Bills. The Chiefs need to lose.
We brought this up during the season, that the Chiefs were skating by, that there are several games where they're getting favorable calls that gave them wins. And really, when you look back at it, the NFL manipulated this so that the Chiefs were the number one seed. They had the home field advantage. Because if you just take 2-3 wins away from them based on some of those late game calls that they got that were in their favor, they're not the number one seed. And heck, I this might be a bold statement, but watching the Chiefs play, they're a borderline playoff team, and yet they're in the AFC Championship game. And this shit goes on way too long. I was reminded of it earlier today, and I'll go back to that remembrance when we start talking about the game against the Bills, because we just found out who was announced as the Super Bowl ref, and there's a key play that happened in one of the championship games that propelled the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, that he was behind. So it's almost like you can't uncover a rock without finding someone who has given the Chiefs preferential treatment over the last 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, there it is. I mean, but some people might find that to be a controversial statement, a borderline playoff team. Because the one thing I noticed when I was bitching and moaning about this game after it, it makes you forget, hey, the Chiefs are a pretty good football team. They don't need this.
Right.
It takes away. It totally takes away. I don't know if it'll take away from anyone's legacy, and but they're a good team. They don't need this, but they should not be the number one seed. They're not good enough to be the number one seed. But it doesn't matter if you're not good enough. They get a massive home field advantage. They get to play there throughout the playoffs. They're probably a 10 or 11 win team, and that wouldn't have got it done. And they'd be in Buffalo this weekend. And that's probably where this game ought to be. I hope the Bills just make it not matter. This is to the point of ridiculousness right now. This is, if you're just going to give the Chiefs the trophy, just give it to them. I go back to the Super Bowl against the Eagles, and I laughed at the time because I wanted the Chiefs to win that game. But the call at the pass interference at the end of that game,
terrible.
That I'm sure Eagles fans haven't forgotten. I mean, this has gone on too long. It's too crazy. I hope to God that Novak's right. The NFL has to take notice. And at the very least, in this Kansas City-Buffalo game, these officials should be on high alert for, we better make sure it's roughing the passer. We better make sure it's pass interference. Don't keep the flag in your pocket on 3rd and 13 unless you see something egregious. Because if the same shit happens now, after everything that went down, and as Koss mentioned, former players, fans, people in the media now are getting on board, players from other teams. If it goes on beyond this, then it's not going to stop.
I don't think it stops. Not at this stage of this playoff run right now. I'd be really shocked. Think about it, guys. Imagine we're in the middle of the game right now, and like you said, there's a critical 3rd down play for Kansas City's offense, and there's a questionable, illegal contact or something. You really think, how are they going to refrain from throwing the flag at this stage of the playoffs? And I have a tough time seeing it. So it's almost as if Buffalo has to play the perfect game. They have to play the perfect road game. Can they do that? I think they can. Will they? Of course, that's to be seen. But you just hit the nail on the head, Mike. It has to stop. All of us. I mean, it has to stop. I don't know how it's going to stop. I don't know if the NFL wants it to stop. I was being asked this week, and does the NFL really want the Chiefs? I'm like, yeah, they do. They do.
Why do you think they planted Caitlin Clark up in the skybox
exactly.
with Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
To think that wasn't a plan is bullshit.
Yeah. It's like, insert a friend here. Like we're next to Swifty there. Yeah. It's so this week it was Caitlin Clark. Next week, who knows who it will be.
Right.
The one thing I keep thinking about with this game, in contrast to the other 3 that were played that weekend, I can't go back to any call that I'm thinking about on the other 3 games that was controversial or that I thought that the refs, took a big part in. A matter of fact, the Bills-Ravens game was one that I thought was well officiated. They let the teams play, and you didn't have much happen there that was, where we're going, oh my God, can you believe that happened? However, the Chiefs game, it happens right in the very first quarter. The very first time Patrick Mahomes is hit, a flag comes out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills-Ravens game was night and day to the Chiefs and Texans game. Yeah. It was so stark. The difference was so stark. You nailed that right on the head, Scott. Yeah. And I don't, all the attention on this game obviously is on the Chiefs and the officials and all that. But I can't miss this point in this game. And you guys know what's coming because I blew up on text about it. With 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter and the score 20-12, D'Amico Ryans decides to go for it on 4th and 10 from the Kansas City 40.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, sacked for -16 on that play. So not bad enough that you just don't pick it up, but you give the Chiefs an additional 16 yards, to play with on the back end of that. But then, immediately after it, the announcers, they just don't pick up on this stuff anymore. And I know they used to. They never talk about field position. So, Houston had a great 3-and-out stand immediately after that, which, at the time gave them a chance to still win the game. So the announcers were sort of like, no harm, no foul on the going for it. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. That was a ball at the Kansas City 40.
Yep.
So you guys made your stop. Now, instead of you punting Kansas City back, they're punting you back, which they did. And then Houston can't get off their own goal line, punts. Kansas City gets it at midfield and goes down and kicks a field goal. That's all a result of D'Amico Ryans not punting in that situation. All the stuff, even with a great defensive stand in the middle of it, it was a 6-point swing. Well, no, maybe not 6 because they would have punted. But, you're talking about the difference between you punting. And by the way, Novak said this during the game, spot on. Of the 4 units playing that night, the Houston defense was the best unit on the field. And it wasn't close. I can't imagine Kansas City right now without Kelsey, by the way. But yeah, so I could not let that go. And then it made me really mad right after that when Houston stands up, gets a great 3-and-out, like no harm, no foul. No, this field position battle is still going on that was caused by going for that. So enough with the going for it. 10 minutes left in the game. You're down by 8. Punt it. For crying out loud. I can't.
And you know what? That game was bad enough. But when you look at the Lions and the Skins game, you had a number 1 seed that played this game like they were in week 10 of the NFL. Just a regular run-of-the-mill regular season game. Let's run some double reverses. Let's pull the trickery out. And what ended up happening is that defense couldn't stop Washington. They couldn't make a stand when they needed to. Goff had some terrible, turnovers, and we're now watching the number 1 seed lose, and everyone's incredulous. And we've been talking about this all year long, that Dan Campbell and the way he coaches, he's not set up for postseason success. There's some teams that just aren't, because they play this game the same way as they would in the regular season. The other teams adapt and they play differently in the postseason. The Giants always did. The Giants always pared down things. Their defense became more stout. They just changed the way they play, and these teams that don't exit early. Chargers were a prime example of that back in the day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think the 2 worst plays or situations in the playoffs thus far has been both from the Lions. One, that double reverse Statue of Liberty play crap that they threw, right? And then the next one, they have 12 men on the field on a 4th and 2 from the 3. But so the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, let's go hire them as head coaches.
Yeah.
Give me the fucking break. My new head coach has 12 men on the field on a 4th and 2 on the 3-yard line. Get out of your minds.
I was watching the game not watching the game. I was with a Lions fan last night, and he's like, the Bears just hired Ben Johnson. I've never heard the man talk. He's like, so what's he going to do when he's in front of the Chicago media? He's going to have to speak. He's going to have to. Chicago's one of the worst places to be for a guy that can't communicate. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, what if I'm the Detroit Lions? I'm not happy that one of my coaches just went to a division rival. But to Novak's point, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator both had flaws in that game, and they both got hired. Well, probably one of them's going to get hired.
This is one of the
coordinators going to get hired.
That was one of those losses, guys, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but man, all of a sudden it feels like the Lions just are in trouble in terms of if they didn't get to the Super Bowl this year, then when will they? Or is it one of those things where maybe they felt the pressure of a 1 seed? Maybe who knows? It's hard to say, but I got to give a lot of credit to freaking Quinn and the Redskins, man. I mean, they played. And Jaden Daniels, he's actually part of my peeve, not him, but involves something about him. But when I looked at that, I'm like, wow, who's the rookie quarterback here? Is it Goff or is it Daniels?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
And just the way the game was coached and the way the game was played out. But I thought a couple times when after Laporta made that crazy one-handed grab to get. I think I put them up 14-10. I'm looking at the game summary here. I was thinking like, okay, if you guys remember, I remembered my own prediction. I said, Washington's going to hang around. They may even have. I think they're even going to have a 3-point lead at halftime, but then eventually Detroit's just going to pull away. And it was the opposite, really. I mean, Washington did have the lead at halftime, but the killer was that Zach Ertz touchdown right before halftime, because I think that was a 4th down play. Am I right, guys, on that one?
Yeah, it was.
That put them up by 10. And even though Detroit cut it to 3 with the Gibbs, with that long drive, 11-play, 91-yard drive, I still felt like Washington had control of the game, and that Detroit defense could not. They had no answer. Now Novak, I'm sure we'll talk about Aaron Glenn, right? But him and that defense, man, they could not stop Washington. Nope. Couldn't do it.
Not. Nope.
And Washington deserves that win. No question, they deserve that win.
Absolutely, they did. They were the better team from start to finish.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say, I believe Goff played that second half concussed.
Oh, probably.
Yes. I really
we can talk about that play.
On a play that wasn't flagged, by the way.
A play that wasn't flagged, but yet Pat Mahomes gets, waved at, and he gets roughing the passer.
Yeah.
Goff had to have been concussed.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, they don't make that double reverse, Jamison Williams throw call unless they know something's wrong with Goff. I don't think. Yeah. And if they did, that they're more idiots than I thought they were. But he was definitely, something was off with him. He was overthrowing and underthrowing. They were a different team. Yeah. I'm telling you, he was concussed. This Fugazi fucking protocol they have going on is a load of crap.
I want to make a point here, because prior to the game, I didn't realize this, but in the aftermath of the game and in the days after, everyone's talking about how many people the Lions had injured on defense. Like, this is what the reason they lost. Well, why did anyone not say that prior to the game? Why did they not say that this decimated Detroit defense could be in jeopardy?
No.
I didn't hear a word about that.
No, everyone picked the Lions to a man. And then right after the game, it's immediately like, well, the Lions were just too beat up to handle. Well, why didn't you say that before? That's called analysis. Now what you're doing is reaction. Nobody had the balls to say that before. And I'll say this, and Novak will appreciate this, I think, too. This Ben Johnson, I heard him referred to by the Chicago media as the perfect coach for Caleb Williams. And I'm thinking, by what metric because the guy calls trick plays? Is that what makes him the perfect coach for Caleb? I mean, but because he's an offensive-minded coach, I mean, he's an offensive coordinator. Of course, I don't get just the rush to say everything is great and everything's the best. And we don't know shit about this guy. We just got a story now where the guy can barely talk. Maybe that. I'd like to see a little bit deeper analysis than a guy who calls trick plays as a good coach for a quarterback.
They probably said Matt Eberflus was a great choice for the Bears too. If we go back to when he was hired.
Yeah. I said prior to that, when we did our predictions last week, I don't like picking teams where the coordinators are every hot coach for the next job, because I feel like they're still auditioning. And I feel like Ben Johnson went into that game auditioning for his next job with those bullshit trick plays. And we've said it for months. We've all said it. This is going to come back to bite the Lions. And it did. The going on 4th down, the not kicking field goals, the trick plays, that biting him at the kneecaps bullshit mentality. That doesn't last. Came back to bite him, and the Washington was better. And that throw from Daniels to Brown was the best throw of the year.
That's a great throw.
It was insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The flick of the wrist, and it was on the numbers, going the other direction. Sorry, guys. You're going to deal with that guy. He is the real deal.
He's a problem.
Hey, I've heard so many people say we're going to deal with someone for 10 plus years and, name the player, and it rarely works out that way. We'll see.
I don't know. No one said that about Hurts or Prescott. This guy is different. He just is.
I've heard it about many. So.
That's true.
Heard it about RG3, and then,
about CJ Stroud. That's for sure.
All it really takes is one big hit to derail a guy's career, possibly. You never know.
Could be. You might be right.
So that leads to the next NFC East team. By the way, the NFC East, it gets dragged most of the year. Now it has 2 teams in the NFC Championship game, but we had the Philly against the Rams, and Saquon Barkley ran wild. It was a snow fest. He's, slapping himself in the head, Three Stooges style as he's running for the winning touchdown. But guys, the Rams had a legitimate chance to win this game. And I have a big problem with the way they used Kyron Williams at the end of that game. They had a 3rd and 2 from inside the 10, and they decided to throw a pass that ended up, I think Stafford got sacked, and it became like 4th and 15 for their last chance gasp. Run Kyron Williams twice. 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
Run it twice.
Yeah.
You might get the first down, you might score.
They had the time. I mean, that just seemed like the right time. The Eagles are in complete disarray there. You can do anything you want. They're not looking for the run. Kyron Williams is going to get a yard and a half or 2 yards on at least 2 carries, but they had plenty of time to do it. Earlier in that drive as well, they had some miscommunication on defense after they were just driving the ball down the field or on offense, where they had forced to call a timeout at a time they really didn't need to, allow the Eagles to get subs in there. I thought that was a big thing too. I thought they could have jammed it right down their throat, but yeah, it is what it is. And here we go. Here we go with Washington and Philly in an NFC Championship game. You had to figure when Dallas sort of fell off the map earlier this year that something like this wouldn't happen to us. But here we are with Washington and the Eagles.
Here's one of the things I was thinking about as a Giant fan. Whenever we miss an extra point, let alone 2 extra points, you say to yourself, it doesn't matter if it's in the first quarter or if it's in the second quarter, this is going to come back to bite us. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, the Rams are driving down with a chance for the winning touchdown at the end of the game because the Eagles have missed extra points, and it still works out for the Eagles.
The biggest plays. What's amazing, I don't know if you guys agree or think the same way. As I'm watching that game, I literally say to myself, "Where's the fumble? Where's the turnover? Not even like a turnover interception. I'm waiting for the fumble in the snow." And the Rams just promptly lay it on the turf twice. The Eagles get those fucking turnovers I feel like no other team gets. It's amazing. There's nothing going on to indicate that a fumble's coming. And those are usually freak plays, that kind of thing, and especially in that kind of weather. But the Eagles don't turn the ball over. They don't have the devastate. They don't. And yet they get those 2 times. The score, it was 16-15, right? Rams have the ball at their own. I think here it is. They fumble on their own, 2nd and 2 at their own 43. That leads to a 4-play, 5-yard drive, bullshit field goal to put them up by 4. They get the ball back, and they fucking lay it on the turf again. That's really, you can't overcome those 2 turnovers right there in the second. You can't overcome that. And they still had a chance to win at the end of the game, LA. And you just knew they're not pulling this out. As even with that long pass to the Puka on the far sidelines, and they got down in that territory, I never thought LA was going to pull that out. I just didn't. I was sitting there watching. I didn't, Mike. I was thinking nah. I go Philly's going to hang on. I go, the Rams aren't punching this in. And then, of course, the sack, to put him in 4th and long. I'm like, that's it. That's the game right there.
When they had the 3rd and 2, I said, run it twice. They had Mike said, they had plenty of time. There's still 40 seconds on the clock or whatever.
There's a minute 14 actually when they snapped that ball in 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
When they got to that 3rd and 2 with a minute 14 left, I was like, the Rams are going to win this game. I at that point, I thought the Rams were going to win the game. I thought they might get a walk-in touchdown on if they ran the ball in that 3rd and 2 too.
I don't know. But really what really grinded me was those 2 fumbles. Because if I remember correctly, one was just they weren't big hits or that kind of thing. It was just the exchange from quarterback to running back kind of thing where the ball's just being laid on. Okay. Then if you're going to do that, then you expect maybe the other team to give you one. You know what I mean? Maybe maybe we get one back and it kind of evens out. No, it doesn't happen that way. Eagles go +2 on the turnovers, and they end up winning the game because of it. That's really the difference in the game of the turnovers. Certainly, going back to the Washington Detroit game. I mean, that was 5-0, right? We got But the biggest thing that I didn't hear a lot about in this particular game, broken down the last couple of days from the media, were really those those fumbles. I didn't hear a ton about that. But I thought that was it. They couldn't overcome that. In the end.
Yeah, I think the Rams defensive coordinator needs to take a hit about this game because how do you allow Barkley to run for
Mhm.
200 yards or whatever it was? I mean, Hurts is obviously hurt, right? I don't. He has been done nothing all game long, and I felt like they just got soft or something. I don't know. I was disappointed in how they handled the Rams on defense against the Eagles, but it's I don't know if you guys noticed, but it snowed, so the commentators didn't let us know that every fucking
They didn't
play.
really jump in
Uh-huh.
on that.
But seriously, it is the weather is an issue. Make them throw. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved
Yep.
watching the recap of that game when the highlights in the first quarter, the field's okay, and then the announcer goes, "But wait till the fourth quarter," and then there's some snow on the ground, and they make it seem like this has changed everything drastically.
It's like
I
it was like a full game of you know how you start off every Zoom call talking about the freaking weather when you're on with someone from a different location. It was like every play they got to talk about every play was the weather.
Yeah. A typical Barkley game. I mean, he has 205 yards,
Yeah.
but he 2 carries for 135. So, he just, that
Yep.
means basically, 24 carries for 70 some yards. But on the other 2,
The home runs.
And
Yeah.
there's
those are
nothing worse to listen to at the end of an Eagle game when they're doing that stupid Eagle song, EAGLE. Oh God,
At least
hear
they
the mayor
spell it
take it.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
can't
at least-
take it. Well, that's true. The mayor got that fucked up.
Yeah.
EGLES, Eagles, go Birds. So
Brutal.
the last game of the weekend was probably the most anticipated, and in many ways it lived up to the billing. The Bills and the Ravens. Ravens came back at the end. Bills seemed to take their foot off the gas a little bit. Ravens came back, scored a touchdown, had to get a 2-point conversion, and we know Mark Andrews dropped a pass, which was not a great pass to begin with, but everyone's crucifying Mark Andrews. But even if they tie that up there, Bills have some time to score. Then it goes to overtime. Bills in this game to me established themselves as the AFC leader. I think this was the game that will decide who goes to the Super Bowl. The refs are going to have to work much harder than they did against the Texans to get the Chiefs past the Bills, I believe.
yeah. It felt to me like we were watching the Super Bowl there, boys. That felt like the 2 best teams playing to me while I was watching that game. Did I know yet that Detroit was already out when I was watching that game? I don't remember if that
was
I
the
knew,
Bills Ravens was the last game of the
yeah,
weekend.
that felt to me like I was watching the 2 best teams there, and that was a Rocky Balboa fight. That was a great game, and again, well officiated. Let them play, and that's what happens when the NFL just gets their damn nose out of these games. A magical thing happens. It's still a great game underneath all the blanket of bullshit they pour on us.
Yeah, it was I think by far the best game of the weekend, and I would say it was the best game of the year in the NFL. From both offenses, both defenses, officiating, the buildup of the game, the weather. I mean, it was just a great game to watch. It was my favorite game. I really have nothing negative to say. I will say that if it does seem like Josh Allen has established himself as the best player in the league, because there were opportunities there he would have done some Josh Allen things from 2 years ago, and he didn't, and he held back. One time he held back he looked like he was going to lateral when he was about to be tackled, and he held it down. I think the guy just anytime you need to make a big play, he comes through, and you know. I think this Lamar Jackson thing has got to stop. He played fine, but he wasn't great. He wasn't as good as Josh Allen. And I think the Bills deserve to win that game.
Yeah, I listening to some of the breakdown. It's funny. Mark Andrews, of course, he's getting just massacred, right? But I will put some of the blame or point the finger a little bit at Lamar, particularly for not so much that the interception, which was 7-7 earlier in the game. That play where he fumbles the ball, like this is, and he talked about it, in his own press conference, said, taking care of the ball and snap. But it's funny listening to Stephen A. Like Stephen A. He was asked point blank, like, how much blame do you put on Lamar? He goes, minimal. And I'm like, minimal? What? How so, Stephen A.? How so? When you can't you've got to take into account every single play, every single all of it, dude. And that one play where he's fucking dancing around and trying to do that bullshit of trying to avoid a sack, whatever the case it was, whatever he's doing there, and you lay that ball on the turf, that's Von Miller picks that up, Buffalo goes in. That could be a 14-point swing right there. If you don't know you don't know if Baltimore's going to score there. I think they were only on like maybe 40. Buffalo's 40 around there, but those are exactly, Lamar, the plays that you have to stop doing at this stage in your career. You just have to. Okay? So that making that game 14-7 at that point, and then yes, we know, Andrews had the fumble and then of course the the drop 2-point conversion, but again, that was if you look at Lamar's game, guy, yes, he put up another, great numbers again. You can't completely say, oh man, Lamar just couldn't get it done. I didn't hear that at all, really, because it wasn't that type of game where you can point to the quarterback for sure. But that one particular fumble where you're trying to do that extra bullshit that you can't, like you can get away with in September, you can't get away with that bullshit in January, and that was the difference of the game. Yep. That fumble.
There is a big difference between running for 120, throwing for 4 touchdowns in October against the Jaguars than there is playing a clean game against a team that you are very equally matched against, and he didn't show up to the level that Josh Allen did. Sorry.
Yeah.
I texted you guys this before the game, but in the pregame they were talking about Lamar, and I think he's year 7, year 8, or whatever he's in now, and they said that Lamar has grown into the leadership position now, and he's morphed into being a leader. And then they came back in the very next sentence and says he's done it by being himself. The guy has always been himself. This is just more rhetoric about trying to build leadership here. Lamar Jackson, from day one that he's been in the league, has spoken his mind. He still speaks his mind. I don't know how you then equate that to leadership now. I mean, he's always been on good teams, and they've always, probably, I wouldn't say underperformed, but they've always stumbled in the playoffs when they come against a better opponent. And the one thing I will say about this game, and actually all the games that we watched this week, there were significant coaching errors, I believe, in all of them that helped contribute to losses. In this game, I think Harbaugh missed opportunities because they stopped running Derrick Henry. Yeah, and we talked about that with the Rams, but the Ravens did the same thing. I also think if the Ravens tried running Henry on a 2-point conversion against that Bills defense, he might have gotten it every now and then. They did two-point conversions. One was not even close. The second one was the one to Andrews where he was open, but the pass wasn't great. He dropped it. People are killing him, but you know what? Give the ball to your best player once in a while.
Henry had 16 carries. I'm looking at it here for 84, so a 5.3 average. That's 16. If that should be around 23, 24. I would think, at least. Yeah. He should have another 8 carries there, I think.
Yeah,
totally.
And it's hard to imagine them losing if he does.
If you guys watch the early part of the Lions game too, Jamar Gibbs was killing the Redskins. Yeah. He was getting like 10 yards a carry. And then next thing you know, he goes like a quarter and a half without getting any touches. And you're like, why are you going away from the guy who's doing this? Keep doing it until they stop you.
Because they have the offensive guru of all time. And Ben Johnson. That's why. I'm not joking. That's why they did it. This fucking guy doesn't realize that that's going to win the game. He could have cared less. Ben Johnson, get the fuck out of here.
I'm looking at some of the other guys. Like Barkley had 26 carries, right? For two, we saw what he did. Stick with your guy, man. I don't know. It's just the culture or something of today's NFL. Like, we can't, just stick with the run, stay with the run, just keep running. They won't do it.
These coaches, they panic. They panic when they get down by 10.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this culture now in the NFL of it matters how you win. Yeah. You got to win pretty. I got to throw the ball over the yard. I was shocked at the end of the game when Buffalo punted. I was shocked, but it was 100% the right call. Or was that when they kicked the late field goal? They kicked the field goal on like 4th and inches or something.
Yeah, kicked the late field goal go up 8.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's absolutely the right call. I mean, you got to keep your team in the game.
Yep.
And I don't think I'll give a lot of credit to McDermott on that because I don't think a lot of coaches, I know Dan Campbell wouldn't have kicked it.
Hell no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that
And
put him
what-
up 27-19. Yeah. So
and when
that
you go
was-
up by
yeah.
8, what happens is the Ravens not only need a touchdown, they need that
They-
2-point conversion.
And they didn't get it.
Still have a
That's the
chance
reason
to
they
win.
won.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
you still can get the ball back or win in overtime. You still have multiple chances to win the game if you kick that field goal.
Who
So
was the announcer in that game?
That was,
I had the volume off and the
God.
music on by then.
yeah.
I think it was that game.
Was it
the one-
Tirico? Was it
Was that
Tirico?
What-
Collinsworth?
was it
It
Collinsworth?
wasn't Romo. That wasn't, who was that game?
Well, whoever it was, what the guy kept saying, what you need here is a no, it must not have been that game because they would have tied it with a 2-point conversion. One of the
It was
games,
the Sunday night game, so it had to have been Collinsworth and Tirico.
It was, yeah, Colin and Tirico, right?
well,
yeah.
one of the games that the announcer kept saying, all you need here is a touchdown and an onside kick. And I'm thinking to myself, an onside kick. Have you watched the NFL? It might have been
It
the
was
Lions
Brady.
game,
It doesn't
actually.
happen anymore.
That was whatever
Yeah, it was
game Brady did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said it like 4 times. I kept saying, an onside kick, your chances of recovering an onside kick these days are like the chances of winning the lottery.
Yeah, that Brady, that whole
Exactly.
Brady thing is something's got to be done there too. You can't be an owner of a team and be a broadcaster that can't call out the refs like Aikman did. Come on,
It's true.
something.
It was
something's gotta
Brady.
be
You're
done
right,
there.
Mike.
It was Brady.
Yeah.
But by the way, real quick, going back to what you said about going up 8 by McDermott, no one's praising him. Did you hear
Right.
anyone saying,
No.
Mike, you did the right thing by kicking the field goal because you won because you did that? No.
Yep.
No one said
Yeah,
a damn
no.
word. But
Nope.
if they
No.
had gone for the touchdown and failed, they would have been killing him then. So give him credit when it works and
Yep.
God.
Can't
and I
do
don't know, maybe the Houston media is doing this, but I've certainly heard nothing on national media. Nobody's killing D'Amico Ryans for going for it on 4th and 10 with 10 minutes left on one score either on the 40.
Or
By the
trying
way,
a
can we just-
55-yard field goal
Yeah.
in the wind.
Yeah, that thing had
Which
zero
hooked-
chance.
Yeah.
Can we just bring up I don't know if you guys thought of the Boyd shove of the special teams coach on the opening. Did we
We didn't.
do we want to spend 20 seconds on that, or is that even worth it? I don't know.
What I don't understand now is, first off, they gave up like a 70-yard return.
Yeah.
Was he celebrating? And then what was the shove? Was he mad at the special team?
No, he
I
was
don't
mad
know.
for calling him out because they threw a flag because he took his helmet off.
But why?
But why was he mad at the
Yeah, why did-
coach?
Because the coach.
Why was this guy barking at?
Because he dressed him down. He was like, he called him out.
But he was throwing his helmet on the field. Like what caused that?
Was
No
he
camera angle
celebrating
picked
that
up
he made a
anything.
tackle?
I think.
No, I think he was mad that they didn't recover the fumble, right? He
they did?
caused the fumble,
He
right?
caused the fumble. They didn't
That's
recover
right.
it. He thought they did, and he was pissed that the coach was yelling at him about taking off his helmet. And he was basically saying, "You effer, I got them to fumble."
Yeah.
I love the coach's reaction. He played that off pretty well. He got shoved. He moved back a couple of inches. He was like, "What the?" He gets right back up in his face.
Well, yeah.
Are you kidding me? He looked terrified. What are you talking
He
about?
did look terrified. Hey, I would be too.
It's, hell yeah.
So we found out who the ref's going to be for the Super Bowl before we get into the breakdown of the next games. It's Ron Torbert, and I just want to point out something because Ron Torbert, I know Bengal fans know this, but he was the referee during that. I think it wasn't. It was a playoff game. It might have been an AFC Championship game. The score is 20-20 midway through the fourth quarter. The Chiefs have a 3rd and 9, and they complete a pass for 5 yards, 4th and 4 from like their own 42 or whatever. Send out the punt unit. The punt unit's on the field. The Bengals are back ready to receive, and all of a sudden, Torbert and the officials start gathering. They start talking, and they come back and they say, "Oh, the play clock was not set on the last play. We have to reset the clock to such and such a time. 3rd down and 9." And the Bengals coach is losing his mind because the play ran. No one said anything during the play. There was no whistle during the play. The play's done. Like I said, punt units are on from both teams. And then all of a sudden the refs change the decision. So it's 3rd and 9 again. On 3rd and 9, B.J. Hill comes up the middle, sacks Mahomes. 4th down, Chiefs at the punt. Whoa, no. Defensive holding, Eli Apple in the secondary.
Apple.
Gives the Chiefs a first down. The Chiefs go down and score a touchdown, and they win that game, going to the Super Bowl. So now you have Ron Torbert awarded the Super Bowl game this year.
Is Ron Torbert the one? Of course, this won't come into play in the Super Bowl at all. But isn't Ron Torbert the guy who, like, home favorites have this unbelievable record with Torbert?
I don't know if it's him or that Clay.
Oh, it might be the Clay guy.
Clay guy. I can't remember his last name.
Yeah, with the very stern-looking face.
He may have just done the Chiefs game.
I can't.
Hopefully he won't be.
Guys.
Hopefully it won't be matter because he won't be doing a Chiefs game in the Super Bowl.
So I just think that's interesting because that was, I remember at the time that play was talked about, but even then it was overlooked a little bit. But it was almost like, if you guys remember Colorado back when they had Michael Westbrook back in the day, and they got 5 plays.
The 5 downs. Yeah.
It was almost like a 5-down thing. You got the extra play in,
Nebraska.
even though you already ran the play. And then not only does your second play fail, but then you get bailed out with a defensive holding call that no one ever saw.
Where does he rank in your top 20 most hated officials, Scott? Is he like number 4, number 5? I mean,
honestly, he's under the radar. I could give a shit, but it's just when people bring.
So he's not even he's not even in your top 10.
He's not even my top 10. No.
Oh,
wow.
No. No. I don't have like a wall where I keep officials.
Yes,
I don't know.
There's a dartboard out there somewhere.
You got a freaking dartboard with their pictures on each little slot.
Steph does not like holes in the wall. I had to take that stuff down years ago. So, before we get into the games, couple of notes here. The Jaguars struck out on getting the top coach prospects, head coach prospects. And the rumor was that head coaches that they were looking at didn't want to work for Belke, the GM. So the Jaguars have now fired their GM, but now the top prospects may be gone. So I'll see how that works.
Too little, too late.
Meanwhile, we talked about Johnson getting the head coaching job with the Bears, and Novak. Anything is there confirmation?
Oh yeah,
heavy speculation.
5-year deal.
He did. So Glenn is the coach.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean,
it's done.
It's done. What did I tell you 2 months ago
when
they fired Douglas? I said they will hire Aaron Glenn. This shit organization, like I said then, said, let's find a team that's turned around a culture and let's go get their underlings. Let's go get a guy that puts their 12th man out in the field on a 4th and 2 on the 3-yard line. And let's go ask him who he wants to be his general manager. And it's some schlep that was with the Lions for 26 years. And in those 26 years, they sucked. So yeah, let's do that. And it'll be great. We'll, and you know what? In 2 years from now, I'm going to be saying the same damn ass thing. We're going to hire some hot defensive coordinator to be our next coach. Garbage organization. Before. I mean, I loved Aaron Glenn as a player. I did. He was one of my favorite Jets back in the day. But I told you guys this. I don't want a first-time coach learning on the job, and that's what they have. Again, didn't work with Saleh, didn't work with Bowles, didn't work with Algro, didn't work with Herm Edwards. Like, stop it. And they did it again. Rinse, repeat.
Algro.
Ugh. The Algro.
Yeah. Remember him at University of Virginia.
Nice. Oh, man. Genius.
It just doesn't fucking end. Adam Gase. It just, God, again, we're dealing with this. And I hope the Dick comes back now. I do. Bring him back. What do I care?
Man, we just went about 45 minutes without hearing the Dick. So
sorry.
We're too deep into the playoffs for Dick Brock.
Right.
So, like we said in the opening, our worst nightmares coming true. We have the Skins versus the Eagles in the championship game for the NFC. And guys, I'm sort of torn on this one in terms of what's going to happen. I mean, Jade Daniels has really impressed me. I do agree with Novak and you guys that something's off with Jalen Hurts this year. It just doesn't seem like the same guy. Barkley's carrying the team, but Barkley can only do so much, I think, in these games. I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I'm up in the air on this one, but regardless of which, I just want the team that will have the less ability to win the Super Bowl advance, and I don't know which one that is at this point. I can't see either team beating the Bills.
Washington, I mean, really, it's all about stopping those two 70-yard touchdowns a week by Barkley that he has. If you can limit Barkley to honest yards, keep them under 5 yards of tackle, because they will, the Eagles will historically. Now they ran him 26 times last week in a pretty close game, which makes me think maybe they're over that with Barkley. But historically, they'll give up on the run. You should never give up on the run with Saquon Barkley, because at any given moment he can go for 70. But if you get a nice 10-point lead on them, they'll forget about Barkley, because they've done things like that in the past. And as good as players are, these coaches these days, I'm telling you, that's their only chance. Because if Barkley pops two of those, the Eagles are too hard to beat, no matter what's wrong with everybody else.
This is a tough one. Just for several reasons, because I've been all year, I've been kind of picking against Washington, thinking that they're just not as good as they are. They've been, talk about, we focused, or the media and everybody else focused on Kansas City's, one possession wins all year. I mean, Washington's been talk about getting, made a living of, close games, but they won a ton of them this year. God, but the Eagles just seem so tough to beat at that freaking stadium, and it's so, Scott, to your point, I don't know. It's hard to see. I don't know which direction this game's going to go in. I don't know if we're doing predictions now or not, but I guess I'll save that for our official prediction segment here, which is coming up soon, I'm sure. But
we'll recap both games and then we'll do the predictions.
Go ahead, Novak.
No, I wonder if this game is eerily similar to last year's NFC Championship. You got the lovable upstart Lions against the better 49er team, and they come out and they just are guns a-blazing, scoring left and right. Then they get tight, and the better team ends up winning. I just wonder if it's very similar to that situation, but we'll get into predictions, what I think there. But this is what I feel like might be coming.
And then the second game, it's the Bills and Chiefs, and I'm going to make a semi-bold statement here and say that on paper the Bills should blow out the Chiefs. On paper, we know that won't happen for a number of reasons. Number one, it's in Kansas City, and number two, the refs are involved. But I just don't see this Chiefs team competing with better teams in the league without serious help from the officiating. I hate to say it, but that's really what it boils down to. When I look at this Bills team, they lost their top pass rusher, they lost their top receiver, they went out and they formed a solid team core because they got rid of some of that noise from outside, and they've been a better team for it. I think McDermott's coached better this year. And Josh Allen has played within himself for the most part this year. And when that's happened, they've been really good. Chiefs, I don't think, have scored 30 points all year. They've skated by 4 or 5 games in the last minute or two because of bad calls. And yet they're the number one seed. It just doesn't feel like a number one seed to me.
Yeah, Buffalo. If Buffalo handles Travis Kelce, they should be able to handle the Chiefs. I just see this as it doesn't matter to Buffalo where this game's being played. I might be tipping my hand on my pick here, but it's time. This is the time for Buffalo to exercise this demon. They're not as good as they have been. They've skated by on luck and some good calls and some good pounces all year. I think the officials are going to be sort of under the microscope. For that reason, I think they might swallow the whistle a little bit. And if that happens, the Bills are going to romp them. Obviously I just gave away my pick there, but that's
well, much like I used last year for the previous game as the game that I would liken it to. This is like that Patriot Colt rivalry that you had in like the early 2000s, and the Patriots just dominated them year after year after year. And then the one year the Colts finally broke through and got that one Super Bowl. I wonder if this is the year. It has to be, and I hope it will be, but we'll see.
So, Mike, I'll turn it over to you for predictions.
Hey, predictions. We had some movement last week. We all went 2-2, except for Novak, who went 1-3.
Yep.
We all correctly guessed KC, which I was hoping we'd all get wrong as that game was winding down. But and we all lost on the Lions and Washington. Cardone went out on the island for the Eagles and comes away with a winner. I'm sure he would rather have been left on that island, but regardless. And then we split the Ravens and Bills with Cost and I guess taking the Bills and Cardone and Novak taking the Ravens. So where does that leave us? Cardone is our new leader at 6-4. Novak and Mike are tied at 5-5, and Cost is at 4-6. So Cardone, you lead us off with Washington at Philly.
All right, I guess we'll start with that game since that's the first game, right? Again, I was just alluding to this is a tough game to pick. Novak just made a great point about the kind of the upstart Washington, very similar to Detroit last year going into San Francisco, right? I think that was the championship game last year. I've been picking against Washington all along. I think I'm going to do it again. I just feel that for reasons unknown, like parts unknown, when a wrestler used to come out, so here comes Kamala, from parts unknown. It's almost for reasons unknown. The Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are going to get by. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Barkley again. I think Barkley does get a home run or two again. I just don't see that stopping. And this is more of just a gross disdain for what this game represents for as a Giant fan and having to watch two NFC East teams go at it. And I think just the home field, and I think I just see the Eagles getting by at home. Give me the Eagles 30-27. I see it a real close game. I can see the Commanders, having the lead a couple times. I see a lot of lead changes. I do see I think again, Jaden Daniels has been playing awesome, but I have a feeling this is finally the end of the road, and he maybe not him particularly, but I think there could be a critical turnover somewhere late in the game, turns in the favor over to Sirianni and the Eagles. I got the Eagles 30-27, sort of a mid to high scoring game for a championship game.
George the Animal Steel from Parts Unknown. He was like a college professor, and he would eat the turnbuckle.
Yeah. So for reasons unknown, I get the Eagles away. Parts unknown.
All right. Novak, Washington at Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I sort of gave away how I view this game, and I'm going to stick with that. I see the Commanders coming out strong here, kind of like nothing to lose. We're going to caution to the wind, throwing all over the place, making plays, and I could see them getting up to a 14-3, 17-3 lead, something like that, halftime, midway through the third, and then I see the Eagles just roaring back and deflating them as the Commanders probably start to play a little tight. So I'm going to take the Eagles here in a last-second win, 27-24.
All right. I also have the Eagles just because that's really what I don't want to happen. And I sort of agree with what both you guys who've picked already have said. It's, seems like it's Cinderella. It's the time to turn into a pumpkin, and where I don't feel Philly's a great team, and I think Washington's a nice surprise, but I think the cream rises to the top here. Barkley probably hard to keep a lid on, and I think the Eagles squeak it out 28-27.
What the NFL wants, the NFL usually gets. And I think the NFL wants Jaden Daniels in the Super Bowl. I think they want to promote him as this guy that's come out of the ashes, and he's risen and led Washington to this position with the gunslinging coach. That's the new Riverboat Ron, except he's rolling the dice, going for it on fourth down all the time. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see Dan Quinn go for it a few times on fourth down like he did. It will work again this time. And then they'll fail miserably when they get to the Super Bowl. But I do think that the Redskins are going to win this game, and they're going to win this game 23-20.
Scott's on an island with the Redskins. He finally had to pick an NFC East team. He was forced
He had no
to
choice.
do it.
He had no choice.
He had no choice. Had to do it.
Novak made the best comment last week because he said I would first give up my firstborn before I pick an NFC East team. So.
All right, over to Buffalo at Kansas City. Cardone.
You guys might be surprised at my my final score prediction here, but for reasons unknown, reasons known, I desperately want Buffalo to win this game. I mean, before I give my score, absolutely, this is one of those giant-like type of rooting, no question, pulling for Buffalo like an animal, and I think just I don't know what to call it, guys, but I don't get anything I want in it. We talk about the neutral games. You know how I talk about I wanted, I didn't want, of all the teams in the college playoffs, Ohio State probably would have been my least. I despise Ohio State, and they come and once they go on to win a championship. It doesn't matter what sport, what it is, my neutral games of teams, games that don't involve my team, where I just have to just stop the rest of the world from winning, whether it's the Red Sox, whether it's the Celtics, whether it's the Cowboys, Eagles, I can't. So whether it's the Chiefs at this point, I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. I'm predicting a disgusting, gross Kansas City Chief, Philadelphia Eagle, run it back from a couple seasons ago, and I have Kansas City Chiefs, aided by officials and everything, all the other bullshit. We're going to be, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce wide open as he always is over the fucking middle somehow, and I got the Chiefs winning a close one. I got an odd score of 26-24. Chiefs Eagles in the Super Bowl. It's gross.
God, I won't watch it.
Yep.
I'm not going to watch it. Novak.
Well, and when we talked about the game before, I went into the whole this is the Colts, situation. But if I go back to, you guys probably won't remember, my first pet peeve of the year was week 1 when I went off on the Buffalo Bills, screaming about how they let the Kansas City Chiefs trade up for Xavier Worthy. Was my pet peeve, and I screamed at saying the Bills were the Chiefs bitch, and the whole thing I went off. And I like Cardone. I don't know that there's a game other than when you guys were playing the Patriots and that Patriots undefeated year that I wanted a team that I don't root for to win more than I want the Bills this weekend. I'm nervous already thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Worthy's going to have a massive game, and I think it's coming back to bite Buffalo in the ass that they traded up. So I'm going to take the Chiefs here. 28-27.
That would be a heartbreaker. I just sort of gave my pick away, and I earlier, and I feel that way. For one thing, at our first year kickoff podcast out there at Carolina Beer Temple, I did pick the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl, so I'm gonna have to stick with that. I did pick them just before you think I'm some kind of genius. I picked them beating the Dallas Cowboys in that Super Bowl. So I'll remind everyone of that before I go. But it could very well be the Philadelphia Eagles, so they're close enough, right? So I've got the Bills winning this in a score that is going to sound closer than I think the game will be, 31-20.
I think in that pod, I think I picked the Ravens against the Lions in the Super Bowl. I can't remember for sure, but I think I did.
I'm pretty sure you did.
But I'm thinking much along the lines of Mike. I sort of gave it away when I was talking about this game too. I think this is the game that the refs just went above and beyond the pal last week. Everyone saw it. Former players are talking about it. Everyone is mentioning it. And I think you either have to pull that veil back or you have to just lean into it and be the heel
all in. Yeah.
and go all in. And so one of two things is going to happen. Either this game will be called fairly, in which case the Bills will, blow out the Chiefs, or this game will be tilted in the scales of Kansas City, and Buffalo will have to probably hold on for dear life, or they will lose. And guys, the Chiefs are not a terrible football team. They're still a good football team. They're not the Chiefs that we know. And in playoff football, the better team almost always wins unless there's some sort of mitigating factor here. So I'm going to take the Bills, and I'm going to take them significantly higher. Again, the Chiefs have never scored 30 points this year. I think the Bills win 30-17.
I like it.
You too. Please let that happen.
I hope so. Like I said, I desperately want the Bills, and well, it's hopefully that comes true. My pick has nothing to do with
and by no means
other than just
sort of to Scott's point. By no means is this the end of the Chiefs. This should have been a mediocre to down year for the Chiefs, and they'll be right back next year. They'll draft a couple people, but instead of it being that, everything went their way, and here they are. They should probably only have one loss technically. They laid down for the Broncos at the end of the year, who they probably could have handled had they played them. But yeah, I just feel like this is where the football gods change it. Football gods set things back right.
Guys, we brought this up about this time last year, if not a little bit earlier, maybe a couple weeks earlier, talking about the whole Taylor Swift effect and everything else that was going on. And we said, look, these Chiefs had us. We were all in their corner. This is a beloved team. We're going to pull for these Chiefs. And then the league started pulling this bullshit. And then all of a sudden, over that course of the final way that last season ended and then the way this season's unfolded, they are now almost villains in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be that way. Pat Mahomes is a likable guy. He doesn't have to pull the bullshit he's doing. The Chiefs are a likable team. You don't have to have Taylor Swift and show her every fucking second that you can. And I think they take us for fools in the fact that NFL fans can be fickle, but one thing we like is we like authenticity. And to me, this isn't authentic. This is manufactured bullshit. And we've said it for the last year.
Yep.
Yeah. The NFL caught on to the fact that everyone liked the Chiefs 3 or 4 years ago. So they took that and they crammed it down our throat to the point now where they're completely the opposite of what they are then. And I'll tell you, Mahomes' flop in that game, even though thankfully he didn't get called for that would have blown the top of my head straight off if he got a flag for that. But that did him no favors.
Nope.
That is, I mean, I just saw an interview with him or something where he was at the podium and they were asking him about it. And he's like, "Oh, I don't think we get those calls." And it rings untrue because you're out there trying to get them, Pat. You're out there knowing that if I flail, I very likely am going to get a call. So don't give me that bullshit. You know what's going on. There's a reason after the bullshit roughing the passing call. There's a reason Andy Reid goes right to the bomb on the next play. He knows. He knows as soon as that call is made, I got him. This game is in the bag. I got these officials thinking the right way. Let's go. Let's take the lid off this thing.
Yeah.
So we talked a few weeks ago about Justin Herbert having magnificent hair and then followed that up with him choking in the playoffs. But one guy who has a damn nice head of hair, and it could stay in place as he is throwing his body on the line or throwing darts downfield. It's Josh Allen. He might be too Buffalo to actually use the premier styling butter on the market, Rugged Uncle, but if he did, it might launch him into the next stratosphere of superstardom. So be a Bills fan, break a couple of folding tables, and go get yourself Rugged Uncle. Use code AngryFan on ruggeduncle.com and get a discount. Try it out, guys.
We didn't just start a Rugged Uncle jinx, did we? Did Justin?
No, Justin Herbert, I mentioned after he lost. So.
Oh, that was after. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
okay. All right. I want to make sure we weren't. Yeah, because we don't deserve to do that. The fine product should be used by anyone with hair.
And a winner.
He does have a healthy lid up there, doesn't he, Allen? It looks like he's letting it grow. Must be letting it grow or something, maybe for the cold weather up there in Buffalo. I don't know, something. But yeah, he definitely.
My wife deemed
Rugged Uncle would do really well at that guy's head.
My wife deemed it a little bit greasy looking, so he probably could use some Rugged Uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he definitely could. That would make it be a lot better. He'd probably play better too.
So, pet peeves this week. I don't know if you guys have noticed. If you're watching the video stream, you probably see that he's got a sling on. But our beloved Cardone has gone through
Yes.
some shoulder surgery. He's been sort of on the IR, and yet he's toughing it out to be on this pod. So I'm gonna let you go first, Cardone.
All right. I have, it's not a long one. I promise you that. It does involve a little bit of the sports media to a degree. You know how much I love to bag on those guys. And every now and then, whether it be to describe a player or to describe, maybe a team or whatever the case is, or a characteristic, there's one word that the sports media clings on to, and then everyone just runs amok with it. You know what I mean? So, like, for example, like this year, the kickoff was, for some reason, the adjective to describe that was dynamic. And then hearing that word dynamic made my skin crawl every time I heard about the kickoff, which is not dynamic at all. I think it sucks. It's the complete opposite of dynamic. Or the other one I hate is swagger. Whenever you see a guy walking around, swagger, I don't know what it is, but like, I don't know if you guys agree. That word I can't stand when I hear a guy who's confident with the word swagger. But really, my pet peeve this weekend, and not to take anything away from Jaden Daniels, who's been playing just awesome, lights out. The guy is just playing, beyond, his years in terms of, he doesn't look anything near like a rookie. But I must have heard the fucking word poise to describe Jaden Daniels' play during the game, post game. Then on Monday Morning Quarterback, I heard the word. So someone heard that word as if it's a new found word in the English language. I must have heard poise to describe Jaden Daniels' play, which he did exemplify that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But the fact that these guys glom onto one singular adjective and just absolutely run it down your throat for 60 minutes during the game, and then for the rest of the week, is, I guarantee we'll hear it going into the Sunday's game as well. The poise of Jaden Daniels. It's amazing. There's other guys that have played, with poise, and it wasn't described quite that, eloquently as I heard from the announcers this week and from the broadcasters. My God, I wanted to just just throw my kick my TV in half. I heard poise over and over and over again. The little things, guys, get me. The pet peeves. Oh, yeah. It's the little things like that.
Do you remember the old NFL Today when they'd put up the matchups for two teams and they'd list offense, defense, special teams?
Yes.
And the last X would always be intangibles.
Yes.
And the intangibles thing to me is always like the poise. Like you hear about guys saying poise, but no one actually defines what poise is. Poise is just, he didn't shit his pants or something in the face of a pass rush or something. That's poise. That's
Well, I would say that poise means you make smart decisions. You don't get flustered in certain situations. How is that any different than Brock Purdy, who just keeps getting called a game manager?
Exactly.
Right. I mean,
yeah. Or Eli Manning, again, I any chance I could bring up Eli Manning, the doofus face, right? I'm like, nah, the guy was just fucking stoic, stone cold, poised, I guess, right? He did it for 2 Super Bowl runs, but he got called a dork and a doofus. I don't know. So someone explain it to me.
That was definitely on the talking points this week. The poise of Jaden Daniels.
Well, Kramer. Ask Miss Rhode Island. I mean, Kramer. He's like, if any poise counts. When she was
poise counts.
When they were practicing, rehearsing in the hotel room there
with her birds. She had the doves.
Yeah, she had the doves.
Pigeons.
Yes. If I told you 100 times, if I told you once, I've told you 100 times. Poise counts.
Poise.
We certainly know that with Jaden Daniels.
That screams to me. Poise is always a word that screams to me that the announcer doesn't know what else they're looking for, so they just say poise.
Poised.
Hey.
Yeah, I love the intangibles. That was a good call too, Scott. They put intangibles.
They give you, right?
They give your team every check mark, and then they give the other team intangibles. You're like, what does that mean? What is intangibles? They've got John Elway, the king of the intangibles.
Mikey.
Yeah, I got one, and it's based around one story that I just heard actually earlier today, but I thought I was going to just mention it earlier, but I thought it might be a better pet peeve because it covers the NFL, it covers the officials, it covers the media, it touches about everything that we love to talk about here. So Joe Mixon was fined this week for comments about the officials after the game. Joe Mixon, you may know, hang on, I got to put my readers on for this. Joe Mixon, you may know, is the running back for the Houston Texans. And so Joe Mixon was fined. And what his comment was everyone knows how it is playing up there. You can never leave it in the ref's hands. The whole world sees it, man, what it is. When it comes down to it, you can never leave it into the ref's hands. It's all good, though. So that's what Joe Mixon said. I mean, technically, I don't think that's a finable offense, which, in fact, he was not fined for that. His ex-teammate, TJ Hushmanzada, replied to that and said something much worse. Oh, why play the game if every 50-50 call goes to the Chiefs? These officials are trash and biased. So that's what Hushmanzada said. Well, Sports Illustrated, the media, as we know, reported those comments to Joe Mixon. So they attributed those comments to Joe Mixon. And the NFL, without fact-checking, fined Joe Mixon based on those comments. So Joe Mixon and his agent get a hold of the NFL and say, hey, did you guys not check into this at all? I didn't say that. So the NFL said, well, we'll look into it. So they looked into it. They rescinded the fine and then reinstated it based on his first comment. So they ended up fining him anyway for something that they weren't going to fine him for originally. Yeah, because they couldn't stand, I guess they had that check spent already or something for his fine. So, yeah, if for those watching on YouTube, I just did the most old man thing ever. I put on readers to read something. I've done that officially now on camera, so I can't ever take that back.
Mine are on permanently.
Same.
So yeah, there it is for you right there. We got the NFL, we got the officials, we got the Chiefs involved, everything we want in one pet peeve. And then, you know, the NFL just out there slamming people with fines based on a Sports Illustrated article without looking into whether or not the person actually said the comments that were attributed to them. Love it. Keep going, NFL.
It's fantastic.
It's a bundle pack there. You got it all.
I actually love that happened. I really do. I love that because that just shows what the NFL is just, they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, they can't.
By the way, for those watching YouTube, I have actually a case with cheaters that come out of a case and then they unfold and go over years.
The James Bond of readers.
Slick, man.
I've not really used
Austin
them,
Powers readers.
I don't think they're the right power. I think I need something different, but we'll see. I'll go next on my pet peeves. The first one I touched upon earlier. It's a quick pet peeve. I just want to reiterate this because I can't for the life of me understand when assisted replay is used and when it's not. And I think people around the league now are trying to figure out when it's used and when it's not. So you even have ex-officials going, well, you know, they really should look at this in New York and overturn this call, but the calls aren't being overturned. So either define what assisted replay is or don't use it and get rid of it completely because I'm confused as fuck. I have no idea what assisted replay does. I don't know when they come in every now and then and they go, after assisted replay, that play is incomplete. But you don't know when they're going to use it or when they're not going to use it. So if you're a coach and you're like, I should throw the flag, but is assisted replay going to come in here? The whole system's sort of screwed. Either go to the college system where it happens automatically and you get rid of the college, get rid of the challenges, or get rid of assisted replay because no one knows what the fuck assisted replay does.
No.
I think I heard some comments that they're going to kind of formalize that for next year, which would be a good thing. I don't mind it in and of itself, but you know, it's like this new rule out there that there's no oversight over. You know, people, even the guys in the booth and the officials in the booth, they're hella confused about whether or not assisted replay can even be used on a certain play. They're like, I don't think you can overturn. Oh, yes, I guess you can. Okay, I guess you can. So, was there something that came out at the beginning of this year that said during this year the NFL is going to assist with eye in the sky replay? I don't think there was. This just showed up like week 8.
It did.
You know, they just showed up and they started referencing it. And Scott's been on it like a bulldog ever since then, and rightfully so.
Well, I remember
right
even last year, friends of the show, Ingrid and
like a
Mark,
bulldog.
talked about the eye in the sky, how it's going to be used. And I think they asked a question on this podcast, what do you think of the eye in the sky? And even then, I'm like, you have to put some guidelines around the eye. I don't know what the fuck the eye in the sky is. We hear about this eye in the sky. We don't know when it's coming down. He's looking down, but he doesn't see everything. It's like fucking, he's half blind. Just give us something that we know there's structure around, like you said, Mike.
Exactly.
But why have something you don't have structure on? Like it just seems half-assed.
Yeah, it's almost like they said, you know what? We're going to overturn the obvious things. We're going to overturn the things that, without putting
Except
any
for
definition
face masks that
that
aren't really called on you. I mean, it's like they haven't overturned the obvious things, which pisses me off.
Yeah, the narrative has been replay was never intended to and will never be used to overturn penalties. But I think that at the end of that is coming. Because, the one excuse people always make for officials, announcers make it, you hear talking heads after the game. Well, that's a bang, bang play. All right, well, let them look at it in slow motion then. If it's a bang, bang play and they made a bad decision on a bang, bang play, let them go in and look at it in slow motion.
Slow it down.
There's some pretty clear rules here. Neither one of those flags holds if, to Scott's point, we have some other system against Mahomes. That's 30 yards and a touchdown and a field goal back to Houston. If we have, if those flags are picked up, which almost nobody would disagree with you that they should have been.
They lost by less than 10 too.
Yeah.
By the way, they lost by, what was it, 9, and the spread was 8.5.
Yeah, the safety.
Yes.
So
dreaded safety on purpose.
That was a quick pet peeve. My second pet peeve is that I'm not going to name names here, but I am. There's a larger pet peeve here on the lack of professionalism of sports journalists and people covering teams. I know one sports journalist, and I'm using the term journalist lightly, who has rabbit ears because they reached out to us, our little podcast that we are. He reached out to us after our comments last week and basically said that 3 guys on a couch, not knowing that there's 4 of us, shouldn't be questioning the credentials of an ESPN reporter who's well-respected in quotes. But this comes on the heels of something else that a Giants beat writer did. And I mentioned him last week by name. I'll mention him again. Pat Leonard. Pat Leonard is a shitster of epic proportions. He posts a picture after the Eagles game of John Mara with his hand in his head like this. This is a Giants beat writer posting on Twitter a picture of the Giants owner he's using it to say he's distraught over losing Saquon. Dude, you're a beat writer. You're not there to editorialize. You're not there to provide memes. You're there to report fucking stories. And if you don't report those stories, I just don't know where the lack of professionalism went. And I should know because we've seen people like Skip Bayless get voices on ESPN. We've seen schmucks be given a microphone for the last 5-6 years, and it's just degraded the entire industry. We now have people just spewing bullshit because it gets clicks, it gets attention rather than actually spouting the truth. And I'm not going to throw the guy who responded to us on Twitter under the bus. We mentioned him last week, but these guys like Pat Leonard, these guys like Skip Bayless, these guys that live for just creating controversy, fuck you guys, because you give everyone else a bad name. And that's my pet peeve. We read about sports reporting, we read about the media, and this really sort of crosses both lines. If there's a media person out there who has any sort of integrity, then you get pissed at these fuckers who do this shit.
I just love the fact that someone from ESPN reached out to us. I can't get past it. I don't disagree with your point, but how great is that? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's great, but in the grand scheme of things, you're like, why the fuck are you talking to me?
It makes no sense. Why someone would do that and jeopardize their integrity with a podcast of us 4? I mean, or 3.
I don't think he cares about integrity. I really
apparently
don't.
not.
Yeah, that is.
No.
that is somebody who is Google searching their name every week to see how it gets out there. They want to see everything associated with their name, see and hear everything, and didn't like what we had to say, and that's fine. I don't want this either. I know there's beat reporters from other teams that would never say anything degrading or down-putting to their team. Look at Panthers media, for example, here, but I know Minnesota's the same way. I know some other markets are the same way, where I don't know if they're afraid to lose access or not, but they would never consider posting anything negative or that could be perceived as negative about the team they follow online. They never say anything like that. I like that our guys, we'll come out there and be a little bit nasty. It's one of the reasons people say New York's a tough town to play in, because nobody pulls punches. But, we know from living here in Charlotte that certainly punches get pulled a lot. There's not a lot of negative media around here, that maybe only in the Tepper era about Tepper. But yeah, there's very little integrity. It's all clickbait. You can never, as I mentioned last week or maybe the week before, you can never tell what's in the story from the headline of the story anymore, and that's done intentionally. They want you to click on it. That's all they care about. They don't care if you read it anymore. Nobody cares if you read it. Click on it. That's all they care about.
That's it.
So Novak, I'm giving you the prime position tonight.
Wow, I'm the anchorman today. That's
the anchorman.
So
bring
thank
it.
You. So
don't
I feel like
don't talk about San Diego staying classy in a bad way.
No, I will not. I feel like I use this a lot, so people that listen to this pod on the regular probably think I'm just like an angry person that hates people, but I'm really not. I'm a nice, affable guy. I like people, but people annoy me too at the same time. So, look, the name of this podcast is Three Angry Giant Fans and a Jet fan, right? We're fans. We are actual fans of teams. And you guys are the three biggest Giant fans I've ever met, and it's not even close. I'd like to think that you would say the same about me as the Jets, right? We're actual fans of these teams, right?
No question, man.
So mine is, I'm at a bar on Sunday picking up food for my wife and my daughter who's here, and I sit down and have a beer, and the Bills Ravens game just starts, and a guy comes up to me and he goes, "Who's playing?" And now I'm activated already. I'm like, God. And of course he sits. Now I'm on fire. And
Trigger alert.
Trigger alert. Yep, totally. You know, Cardone, where this is going. He sits down next to me.
Yep.
He doesn't know who's playing. My daughter knows who's playing in this game. So the first play of the game, he overthrows Derrick Henry, right? Or he underthrows him or something on this play. And the guy goes, "Well, he's got to throw it in front of him." First of all, you don't say in front of him. Already I can tell this guy knows dick about football. So I'm even more angry. And I'm like, oh, so now I've got to mess with the guy. So I'm like, oh, so you're a Ravens fan? He's like, no, I'm a huge Chiefs fan. And I'm like, oh God, now it's
huge.
Now
huge
I'm even
fan.
more fired up.
Who's playing?
Yeah. And I goes, oh, so I guess you'd rather they play the Ravens? He goes, oh, is that what's going to happen if they win this game? And so, and he's a huge Chiefs fan. So my pet peeve is, don't call yourself a fan if you don't even know who's playing in the game. I wanted to start asking this guy questions. Name one other player other than Pat Mahomes or Travis Kelce, because I guarantee he didn't know one player. So I don't like the term fan unless you actually are a fan of the team. These guys, come on, everyone calls themselves fans and they wear these Chiefs jerseys, and Chiefs fans are the worst. So yeah, I was my pet peeve. I was angry the rest of the night about this guy, and I was sitting next to him for 15 minutes. Couldn't stand him.
I gotta say that this weekend pissed me off a lot because I wasn't able to watch a full game of any of the teams. So Saturday, we left midway through the first game to go to dinner uptown Charlotte. Went to dinner. At the end of dinner, we came back and I got to see the end of the Eagles game. Sunday, we went to a hockey game, the Checkers game. And during that game is basically no, not the Eagles game. We got home to watch the Viking or the Redskins and the Lions on Saturday night. Sunday, we go to a hockey game. We're watching the end of the Eagles-Rams game at the hockey game. And then I said to the people we're at, they asked where we're going to dinner afterwards because the game was at 4:00 on Sunday. I said, well, let's go to this place, Lebowski's. I love Lebowski's. I forgot completely that Lebowski's in Charlotte is a Buffalo bar.
Big
So
time.
we show
Yeah.
up, and everyone is dressed in Buffalo. We look. There's no tables available in the inside. We look outside in the patio, and there's one table in the back of a four top. And I said to the guy, "Is that table available?" He goes, "Sure." He's like, "Go on out there." We go out there. There's not many heat lamps or anything going on. It's been freezing here in Charlotte, but it was the best atmosphere to watch the first half of that Buffalo Ravens game. And after Lamar fumbled and the Buffalo scored, they piped in the "Let's go Buffalo" and everything else. So I feel like I got a little bit of spirit there, but I'm a guy that loves watching these games. I love Divisional Weekend, and I never got to see a full game just sitting in front of my TV. So this weekend I got nothing planned. My son's actually home for the weekend, so we're watching the games on Sunday. So
There you go.
There you go.
Well, you were out gallivanting around. I assume Cardone was hopped up on Oxy and asleep
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
I don't know where Cardone was. But Novak and I
was in a
held down the
haze.
text thread
We
Yeah.
with just bitching about coaching.
Yeah. By the way, Nova, I want to make a comment on your pet peeve, which I love, by the way, because we talk about this all the time with these fraudulent fans that because we know they're not fans. We know they're not.
They're not.
I have my all-time favorite. It's kind of my own. It's my own. One question fan test. Just quiz, if you will. It has to be done. It has to be done mid-season.
Yep.
I love, and it could be like, let's say you're out at a bar. You go into the men's room or something like that. You're up against a urinal and some guy's barking or something like that. And it's like, and you're talking football. Football comes up, and it's like, I love it. The guy's like, "Oh, dude, huge Steeler fan." And because the four of us, we know the schedules. Even we know other teams who they're playing and shit.
Yeah.
My simple one question test is for fans is like, "Oh man," I go, "Who you guys got tomorrow? Who you playing tomorrow?" I think we play I think we play the Browns. No, you don't. You fucking played the Browns 2 weeks ago. You're at Miami tomorrow, asshole. Get out of my fucking way. That's how you know right away if you're a fan or not. If you don't know who the fuck you're playing 24 hours before kickoff, you're not a fan. No. I've done that. I've actually done that with guys that are like, big play. Like, I think we play. And like, no, you don't. You're at Cincinnati tomorrow. How come I know that? I'm a Giant fan. I'm not a Steeler fan. I know who the fuck you're playing tomorrow. You're not a fan.
Yeah.
I like the I've done this.
I'm going to use
I've only done it. I've only done it once. I'm totally using that, but I've done the thing before. I think it might have been at Mulligan's years ago. There was a guy and I was sitting there. He had no gear on or anything. I had Giant stuff on, and he's like, "Well, I'm an Eagles guy." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And I wasn't buying it. He didn't seem like he was really into any of the games going on or anything. So I turned around and said, "Oh, Eagles, huh?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that Jackson is having a heck of a year." I don't think they had a Jackson on their roster. He's like, "Yeah, it's a good pickup." Turned around. I think he could. I think I smirked after he said it. I think he realized I caught him.
So, guys, last week, Peacock admitted to being asleep and not responding to our questions. So
Peacock
Quarter is back.
Yes.
Peacock came with a full assortment of questions, and he asked us, what have we been most wrong about this year? He said he was wrong about the Redskins being terrible. And for me, I know we railed about this in the beginning of the year. I was dead wrong about how, I don't want to say how good, but how the season ended for the Colorado Buffaloes in college football. I thought they would be a 2-3 win team and everyone would still be giving them accolades. And the team ended up having a semi-decent season and Deion improved his legacy and they had a Heisman Trophy winner. So I was dead wrong about Colorado.
I mean, I had the Jets in the Super Bowl, so that might tell you and give you Now, if I'm being completely honest, that was a little bit for the live pod to have a little bit of fun, but if I were to be honest, I never really thought that. The Panthers, I was dead wrong about the Panthers. I thought they would be historically bad. I said it then, and I was dead wrong. I thought they'd maybe get 2 wins tops, and they were better than I thought.
Yeah, I'd have to say the Panthers as well. They did only get to 5, but they showed a pulse. And I'll maybe be more specific and say maybe Bryce Young's a player. I still don't buy that. I'll have to see a much larger sample size to see Bryce Young. But I know this, they may have had as bad a roster as we thought they had, but they must be well coached or a bunch of team guys or something, because they surprised me as well.
Trying to think for me, it might be, going into week one, thinking I might have been wrong about Daniel Jones. I think, because I was still on the side of like, I think the guy's, is still pretty good, because we had said for years we don't know if he's any good, and like it was all about the offensive line and all that. But I think I was, I can't think of anything else right now off the top of my head. So maybe Jones for me, just thinking that like, man, he is the guy. I think we can, still win with. I think we could still win with this guy. We just need some, an O line and an OC and all that. And the guy didn't even last the whole year. So wasn't expecting that. Did not expect the guy just to be unceremoniously released in November, whenever the heck it was.
By mid-year.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll mention this because Peacock was on a live pod. He was on a podcast earlier in the year, and I think all of us said that Washington was going to be terrible. So I think we were all wrong in that regards.
Yeah. It's funny when you think about Jones. Go ahead, Cardone.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Stay with that, because I was going to say something else, something separate. But
I was going to say, to talk about Jones at the beginning of this year, we thought we were getting the Daniel Jones we saw in Minnesota a couple of years ago.
Right.
Now Daniel Jones is in Minnesota, so we were we were close to being right about that.
Yeah. I was going to say, if the question was, what were you guys like? What were you dead on, spot on? I'm like, it was fucking Saquon Barkley having the year he had. That was absolutely as given as you can get. With the circumstances that we were faced with on how that all went down. So Barkley running for 2,000 yards and all that. I don't remember what you were saying, Scott. I was
wrong about Barkley. I said he'd be injured by week 4. So I was definitely wrong at least by the time they played us the first week.
Yeah. Knew that was coming all year.
Peacock also asks, what's the bigger need for the Giants and the Jets? A franchise quarterback or a leader in the locker room? And look, we need a franchise quarterback. Everyone wants a franchise quarterback. Franchise quarterbacks are very hard to find. I think the Giants need both. And it's tough to find both. I would love to see, we've talked about this when we talk about the draft. I would love to see the Giants take the best player available at number 3. If that's not a quarterback, I'm fine with that. Take a two-way player. Take the defensive end from Penn State and take a quarterback in the second round. I'm perfectly fine with that. We need a quarterback who is able to work with the roster we have, but we do need a better locker room presence. I don't know if I could rank them because the Giants are negligent in both areas right now.
I mean, I think they go hand in hand. I mean, if you have a franchise quarterback, that is the leader in the locker room. I mean, look at the 4 remaining teams: Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Daniels. I mean, you can't win in this league without one. So I would say by far a franchise quarterback.
It's the most important. It's the most important position in all of sports. That's it. All the sports. It is.
My only comment on that is I don't know if there's one available right now. I don't know if there's one the Giants can put their hands on.
Yeah.
Or the Jets. Nope.
That's always the tough part. Everyone talks about having a franchise quarterback, but how do you get one?
Yeah.
There's no Andrew Luck in this draft. There's no,
So Peacock also asks, what would we rather see come back? Sopranos, Friday Night Lights, or Ozark? I know Mike's a big TV guy. I'm going to throw it to Mike first.
Yeah, those are all shows that I liked. I'll be honest about Sopranos. I never sat down and watched that show from start to finish, which people who know the things I like to watch and know my TV history are always shocked about. So when he says come back, I'm going to take it to mean as like a follow-up series or the next another season or something. I did like Friday Night Lights. That they tricked me in. They sold that on it being a football show. It was sort of a teen soap opera, but it was too late for me. I was already way in on it. What was the other one? What was the third one?
Ozark.
I think there's still a story to be told in Ozark. I'd like to see another couple seasons of Ozark. Yeah.
So for me, Ozark had one of the best first seasons of any TV show. I loved Ozark in the first season. After that, for me, it declined. My answer is Sopranos, but I will say this about Friday Night Lights, and it's my personal preference here. I'm not a big football show fan. For some reason, I love football as a sport, but like I love like hockey movies. I love
Mm-hmm.
basketball shows. I'm not for some reason a football guy, and I don't know if it's because we've now made it more like the Chiefs are having a like WWE type event with football. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's what it is or not. I've never gotten into that. And Steph and I used to watch a show called The All American on the WB or whatever. And this shit's still around, by the way. It's like Tay Diggs is a coach. It's like in season 20 or something like that. It seems like it's been around forever. We used to watch it. We got through like 4 seasons and we stopped watching that too. And same with Friday Night Lights. I think I got through the first season. That was it. It's a good show, I thought, but we just never stuck with it. So my answer is The Sopranos.
I'll go.
Cardone.
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, you might be surprised at my answer too. It's not. It's funny, Scott. You said this. You hit the nail on the head. I'm not a football like series or movie guy either for some reason. There's some good ones out there, but I'll pass on Friday Night Lights for that reason. Sopranos, another one where I think Mike, you just said like never watched from start to finish. Believe it or not, even as a New Jersey guy, I never did either. I never watched from start to finish. I loved Ozark, and I loved Jason Bateman. So if you can
Yeah.
bring back
Yeah.
Ozark with Jason Bateman as the lead guy, and I tell you else, who Laura Linney, right? She was played the wife. She's like kind of sneaky hot. I mean, I'm
Yeah. Sneaky hot. That's a good word.
So I probably got like 23% of our, maybe that's probably even too high of our listeners like agreeing with that one, but I'm going to stick with it there and just say, bring and run that back. So run that back with Ozark. So I'm going there.
I never watched one episode of Ozark or Friday Night Lights, so by
There you go.
default, I'm gonna have to say The Sopranos. So, and I didn't really watch that start to finish either. I picked that up after it was done. So I'm not a big TV person. So I guess I'll say The Sopranos.
It does seem like a weird equivalence, right? The Sopranos, which is like a multi-award winning, will forever be remembered as one of the greatest shows of all time on TV. And then these kind of two randos. But
Yeah.
it's funny
Well,
that
I will say, like I love Jason Bateman too. Ozark first couple seasons was great.
Yeah.
I think it fell off a cliff a little bit
It
after
did.
that, but
Yeah.
but the first season of Ozark will stand up to almost anything that I've seen.
Agreed.
But to me, The Sopranos, I don't know what 7, 8 seasons or whatever it was. It 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 ran, and I hinged on every episode. And even when it ended, I was like, you could do more of this. What? Come on, what are you gonna do
Yeah.
here? Then of course
Just the
Gandolfini
True.
died, so it was tough. But
continued excellence. Yeah. There's no doubt.
so my buddy Mike Harrison, he asks, he wanted us to give a sort of a synopsis of how we started the pod. Any reservations you guys had to start the pod, and basically what are our thoughts after 5 years? And really, this came about. I'll, I'll take credit for the idea of this. I just said, guys, we should we should talk about what we talk about all the time. We would sit there and bitch about the Giants or cheer about the Giants for years. We'd go to each other's houses, watch the games, and we'd commiserate with one another. And then once podcasting became a medium, I just said, let's try this. Let's go in to doing a podcast. And as we got into it, I think it was like at the end of season 1 or beginning of season 2, Novak started getting more involved because we had some interaction with Novak. We had some guest hosts. Novak came on board, and then he's joined us since then. And I think it's really been a good maturation of the show to have a person who not only shares our locale basically with New York team, but someone who shares our misery. And it's been good and cathartic in that way.
Yeah.
After 5 years, I will say this. Guys, I have a ton of fun doing this. I really do. I look forward to this every week. Our teams fucking suck ass. We know that. And yet, even though we suck, I don't think I had more fun at anything I did this year than the live pod we did.
That was
That was
great.
just a blast for us. For me.
And you just
Yeah.
spent 2 weeks in Europe, and you're saying that. So yeah, that's not bad.
That says a lot.
I'll say it was sort of came about like with Jerry and George sitting on the couch, right? Like, what are we doing now? This is a show. This is a show. Why do people want to watch this? You know, that's kind of that's what we were like. No, apprehension. I'll take that part of the question. Absolutely, man. I for those of you who don't know, I don't like talking to people. I do not like, I am a head down. I never lost that part of my New York personality, I guess. So yeah, when I was first telling my wife that we were going to do something like this, she's like, "You are? Like, what is that? That doesn't fit you at all." But I've had a ton of fun doing it, and yeah, adding Novak was great, and yeah, I can keep going forever. How do I feel about 5? I feel like it was our best effort.
I really do feel like we hit our stream. I think we hit a stride in year 5. I don't know how much our listeners have exploded in that regard, but I love the interaction and the synergy we have, guys. I really do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but for some reason I recall. Yes, I remember you coming to us, or I remember you coming to me and asking about starting this podcast, and I didn't know a lot about podcasts, and I didn't. Was it a year before we actually started, and then, or was it the same year? Or maybe it was. I thought you tried to get us to do this the year before we actually started. And I was like, I'm like, nah, I don't feel like doing that, Scott. Because I think I remember telling you, I'm like, dude, I'm watching the Giants less and less. I'm watching the NFL less and less. The Giants, they've sucked other than 2016, right? At that time, I'm like, Scott, I'm like, I'm not watching as much as I used to. I don't think I want to devote this much time. And then like we kind of passed on, like, all right, Cardone, and then you called me up again and asked me about it, and I remember saying, like, and I think you remember this. I'm like, can I curse on this? And you're like, yeah. I go, absolutely. I go, sign me up then. Let's do it. But
so I don't know if you'll remember this, Chris, but I think we talked back when we used to work together about writing a sitcom. We were saying that we had all this material to write a sitcom. We never did.
I know.
And this was sort of a vehicle when I said, we never wrote a sitcom together, but we could do a lot of funny shit if we do a podcast.
We started writing stuff down. We did.
I had notes.
We had
Steph
a folder.
Went through and found the notes. She was like, "What is this?" I was like, "Oh, my notes from the sitcom."
Well,
I
read a sitcom.
For guys, I have buddies who listen. My current job now, and like I've brought that idea and concept to those guys, and we talk about the same thing, like writing a sitcom and just all the stuff that happens at work. Very much like Office-esque, right, guys? I think we're thinking about the name of the show would be called Break Room, I think, or something like, so. But one thing that I tell people about our week to week, our pod, none of this is script. Like, we don't script anything.
No.
None of it's scripted. A lot of times we come on, the four of us, and we don't, we talk, we obviously communicate during the week, but we don't talk about what we're going to talk about really. And like the stuff that we come out with, we even surprise ourselves. We talk about it when we're off air and say, a Seinfeld thing will come up or something like that. So everyone adds their own, personality or wittiness or which the part that I love. So I love the idea that we come on and do this and we don't script any of this. We don't, and it just comes. So that's just the natural love that we have for our teams, the way we can make it, comical, and our sense of humor, I think, about, and just tearing up our own teams, I think is what makes it fun. And that's what I enjoy about it, is just ripping on our own teams. And then not only that, but just because I get asked a lot, like, well, what do you talk about with the Giants? They're not even playing this week. I'm like, no. We talk about the entire NFL landscape. We talk about other sports. We integrate all those other things that we just love as sports fans. So that's the part
Three's
I love
Company,
about it. Just Three's Company, old 70s and 80s sitcoms that you never know what references are going to come up.
Horny Mrs. Roper.
Yeah. That's the part I love about it. We don't know what's going to happen week to week. I'll go back and listen even sometimes to our own show. I'm like, holy shit, I've totally forgot. Like I said, we talked about Cheers or something. I don't know. Sam Malone.
I listen to our show every week, and I crack up like I'm listening to it for the first time. I
Yeah,
really am,
same.
because I don't know if I'm paying attention to hosting or whatever, but I'll be like, oh, what the fuck? Cardone just pulled that out of his ass. What the hell?
I think it's funny shit. I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's funny. Although when I joined last year, of course, I've told this before, and like I was on it. I think Scott said I would be joining for the year, and a guy I went to high school with, who's friends with Cardone, tore me a new one on Twitter. You're gonna ruin this. This is the worst. What are you doing? And I was like, what the hell have I done to these guys? These are my friends, and I'm screwing them just being on this podcast. So it took me a while to feel comfortable in going after the Giants, and I think probably at one point Mike said to me, he was like, Novak, let it rip. We don't care.
Let it rip, man.
And so I did.
Yeah.
I started ripping on the Giants, and screw it from there. And I love too. While I love the football stuff, the comedy stuff for me is even better.
Yeah.
So Mike also asks, what would we rather be? Fluent in any language to be able to respond to someone, or communicate with the animals? And I tackled this a few weeks ago when I talked about Aquaman. Fucking talking to animals is lame. I'll communicate in any language. I'll communicate with any human. I don't care if a dolphin can do my bidding.
But you're not going to use your bad accents, are you?
No. I'm just going to use the accent. I'm fluent
He
in
would
any
be
language.
very
I don't
good.
need to.
He would be able to talk in every dialect of every language.
Okay.
He would disappear into crowds no matter what country he was in. He'd be an absolute stealth. No, I think you're being short-sighted on that. Like I just said, I don't like to talk to people, so why the fuck would I want to do it in multiple languages? Like, no.
That's true.
Like, I would love to talk to dogs and cats. That'd be awesome. You imagine, like, if you're having a beef with somebody, you could call in some wolves just to handle that for you. Like, hang on, I gotta go talk to
Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for me, it's animals. I don't even like talking to people in English, so I'll leave it there.
Oh, it's definitely animals. I mean, we have coyotes in our neighborhood, and I walked right by one night, and I really would have liked to be like, are you about to eat me, or what do I need to do?
Yeah, this is a tough one because there's benefits to both. Yeah, like you said, it would be nice, like a raccoon or something. Get the fuck out of my garbage can! Like, he would know what you're saying. He'd be like, all right, sorry. Yeah, he would. So he would.
What are you looking for in there? You can always ask.
That's cool. But I tell you what, but using being able to speak languages like that, that's like, I mean, you talk about a secret freaking power. Like that's like being able to read people's minds. That's like Frank Costanza going into the nail shop there with Elaine and like, blah, 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 where's my tail? Remember when Frank spoke Korean. Like,
or Kramer
that'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
Kramer took the dog food or dog medicine to make his cough go away.
That's right. Smuckers. That's right.
Yeah. Smuckers.
They had the same affliction. These are dog pills. May cause panting and loss of fur. Yeah.
So the last question of the night is, what insect would you eliminate if you could? For me, this one's easy. Mosquito.
Oh, yep, agreed.
Fuck a mosquito.
Get rid of mosquitoes.
Now that you said mosquitoes,
you get rid of malaria. You get rid of a ton of shit. You just get rid of mosquitoes.
Yeah, mosquito. I don't like bees, or bees bother me too, and I don't like spiders. So let's get rid of all insects. Is there a reason to have an insect? I can't.
Yeah.
I know there's some environment things. I don't. Whatever.
Cockroaches.
Oh, they're bad too.
I know someone who would really like to eliminate cockroaches. Yeah.
Palmetto bugs, not cockroaches.
Palmetto, that's right. The palmetto bugs, the much more attractive reference.
No, we were down at Disney at a resort, and on the wall was a gigantic cockroach. And, people in the house were like, "Oh, that's a palmetto bug." I'm like, "No, it's a fucking cockroach. We'll kill it. We'll get rid of it, but it's a cockroach. It's not a palmetto bug."
Call it anything you want. It's a cockroach.
You guys got anything else for tonight?
I don't have anything else I was going to use in Pet Peeves, but I just want to say real quickly, this Major League Baseball Hall of Fame has got to do something. Billy Wagner should not be in the Hall of Fame.
And Billy Wagner's the one they're focusing
come on.
too.
Billy
Get
Wagner's in
the
the Hall of
fuck
Fame.
out of here. Yes. And John Franco, Keith Hernandez, Don Mattingly are not. Get out of here. Billy Wagner.
Guys, I go back to this. How the hell did 7 people say Nolan Ryan wasn't worthy of the Hall of Fame?
How did one say Ichiro should not? Come out, admit it.
It's just stupid.
I hate the Hall of Fame. The voting is so stupid.
I almost brought that as a segment, and I almost talked about Billy Wagner because the whole thing tonight was about Billy Wagner making it and talking about what a great story that was. And I'm thinking, this guy doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. What the fuck?
He sucked as the Mets. He lost our pennant the one year. I can't get into it.
Billy Wagner. I didn't even know that. I knew that they were making they whatever, they have the announcements or whatever. I didn't even know that he was on the list.
CC Sabathia got in.
Yeah, CC's in. Yeah.
So if you guys don't have anything else, next week we'll be previewing the Super Bowl. I'm sure we'll be bemoaning at least the NFC Champion game. But hopefully we don't have any more hot takes on officiating. That would be my goal.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Not counting on that.
Go Bills.
Yeah. Go Bills is right.
Yeah.
Bills. Let's go.
Like we said before.